Hi, it's Pat Jackson. This is my Module 8 presentation over legal aspects of teacher evaluation. In the assignment, the first piece we look at is Teacher Evaluation Heads to Court, which is a compilation of court cases that kind of depict different grievances brought up against school districts dealing with teacher ratings or how it affects their pay or where their tenure falls into play. These different factors are a part of the increased number of litigations that could be because of the shift in evaluation methods being used. A couple questions that come into play during this piece about the methods of evaluation are the new methods more effective than the old methods? Are teachers who have spent a lot of years in a system having a hard time coping with new systems as they are put into play? And how well are these systems being taught to teachers for transparency reasons? The union is involved in this piece in the capacity of seeking fairness, trying to separate teacher evaluations from pay increase or decrease, making sure that teachers with tenure status are protected, as well as seeking fairness for teacher evaluations based on student factors as well as subject areas that are non-testing subject areas. There's a couple cases that depict these factors, such as Texas 2014, the case of Houston Federation of Teachers against the Houston Independent School District. A grievance was brought up where teachers felt their ratings were at risk due to the number of ELL students in their classes. Another case we see that depicts another factor involved in the ratings is in Tennessee 2015, Wagner versus Haslam. The advocacy group challenges the use of school-wide growth measures at the expense of teachers who teach non-testing subject areas. Tenure is something we can see in a court case of Leff et al. Versus Clark County School Districts in 2015 in Nevada. This was brought forward by an advocacy group who saw teachers that were being let go after 2 years of ineffective ratings with no due process. And they seek and argue that there should be due process for teachers with tenure status as they've gain those rights through their tenure status. The outcomes of these cases and a lot of cases across the country involving teacher evaluation are going to shape evaluation practices in the future. Based on those outcomes and based on where we see disparities in fairness of teacher ratings, will probably help align more consistent teacher evaluations, probably within districts or even across districts in the country. The next piece that we looked at is the teacher evaluation and issue overview. In this piece, we are comparing and looking at changes in evaluation methods where we see the older system is heavily based on just teacher evaluations through observation, and it is more geared towards the quality of teaching, not the learner outcome. Newer methods focus on multiple measures that not only include teacher quality and the teacher effect, but also the learner outcome, and pairing those two things to give a teacher rating on effectiveness to learning. Union involvement, very similar to the last piece. Advocacy groups work to separate evaluation rates for pay rates to avoid ranking systems and to support tenure. They heavily question single measure systems that lack regard for subject area or underlying student factors like students with disabilities, ELL learners, or socioeconomic status. And they are also pushing districts to avoid systems that allow teachers to bolster their rates with things like test prep, which is something that could possibly happen in the added value model. Because the impact we see in instruction, that instruction has on learner outcomes, Evaluation of instructors is not going away anytime soon. It's just going to be reevaluated and revamped to try to figure out, based on where you are located, what is going to be the best way to support teachers in building their practices and becoming better instructors, and what practices are having the best outcomes on student learning. The next piece that we looked at was the NEA Teacher Evaluation Resource Guide. This was a pretty comprehensive guide to promote the development of effective teacher evaluation. Gives a lot of resources and has a lot of tools that could be used in developing evaluation systems or measures. They hold that their systems should be developed locally or by the state level to increase community contextual factors and considerations. The NEA is a supporter of the development of teacher effectiveness and offers itself as a resource, not going against teacher evaluations. They define effective teaching in this guide in a couple different factors, such as moving from peer evaluation, ranking systems and rewarding those at the top while firing those at the bottom. They seek to move towards systems that evaluate what teachers are doing and the learner outcomes as a pair, not purely just procedural outcomes. They are helping teachers master content and refine their teaching skills, as well as become critical thinkers in making adjustment to their instruction. And then a couple of factors that we look at when we evaluate these teachers and look into the systems that we do the evaluation through is that effective teachers have high expectations for all students. They're contributing to the positive academic, attitudinal, and social outcomes. They're seeking resources to improve engagement as well as adaptations to improve instruction and support students, and utilizing the community and other stakeholders to support student outcomes. The resources provided in this piece are looked at to help with what we would be viewing teachers on doing as effective teachers. And it's kind of hard to read this from a teacher standpoint, because everything you read you want to think of as what you're doing as a teacher, not as who's doing the evaluations on a teacher. But the Principle of Professionals Practices, Interstate Teacher Assessment and Support Consortium, and National Board of Professional Teaching Standards are all put in this as a means to help build a common vocabulary and vision towards these evaluations. They define multiple measures as well, a list of multiple measures to be utilized for teacher evaluation for more impactful ratings. We also are given in this piece of 6 key principles to developing teacher evaluation tools. And while we look at these 6, we see the first one is safe and open collaboration. This promotes teacher communities where teachers feel safe collaborating and sharing with one another to grow their community. The second one is multiple ratings, which is given to us in the form of clear standards and driving actionable feedback that can actually be utilized to get better. Integration is the third key principle that we look at, and that is where we link curriculum standards to professional development, targeted support when looking at these evaluations. The fourth key principle is validated evaluation. Evaluations that are based on widely accepted standards. Number 5, teacher input. Teachers being asked to have input on what they're being evaluated on to promote contextual considerations. And very similarly, number 6 is union input, taking into regards the fairness of teachers and protecting the rights of teachers via their contractual agreements. The research brief was the last piece that we looked at. And in this piece, we looked at the effectiveness of teachers and how it impacts student outcomes. Because it is the most important factor in affecting student outcome, that also means that the evaluations are that much more important. Common elements that we see in evaluation is creating linked integration. And that's where we are aligning our practices throughout our district or throughout our building, as well as developing leadership, people who can go forth and support other teachers or facilitate professional development. Credible evaluation systems, evaluations that can be useful to help improve instruction, as well as establishing credibility, who was involved in developing the evaluation tool, which goes back to what we saw earlier in the guide, having that input from both teachers and from union representatives. Evaluation tool is not impactful on its own. How it's implemented and processed is what makes it effective. A well-designed rubric will help eliminate bias and provide consistency. A number of opportunities given for evaluation on a teacher allows for more valid conclusion. And was the evaluation tool designed for the purpose it is being utilized, or are we trying to fit our vision into a already designed evaluation tool that was not necessarily made for us? This piece pushes that teacher effectiveness over quality is the key. We're looking at how effective a teacher is in student outcomes, not necessarily the quality. Are they teaching to the test? Are they doing great things when you walk in, and outside of that they're not? Do they look really good in teaching things that are not content based? But student outcomes are not being rated very highly because data is not being collected that they are actually learning what they're supposed to be learning. In my district, we utilize the Marzano Focused Teacher Evaluation model. This puts us into evaluation groups by year. If you are a probationary teacher, year 1 through 3, you are being evaluated each of those years. Up to 10 evaluations, including 1 formal, 2 informal, and up to 10 walkthroughs, each providing feedback and assessing you on different elements of Marzano, which there are 10. If there are inaccurate findings, you are able to conference with your evaluator and try to explain what they may not have seen, which gives it some contextual freedom for the evaluator. And with that, there are also plans of assistance available for teachers who are struggling or need support. We are given Marzano resources, probably have about 15 different Marzano handouts that not only define the elements, but also provide examples and rubrics for how they're being evaluated. Teacher coaches and peer consultants are available at request, as well as professional development, which, depending on what content area you're in, is available once a week for classroom teachers at the elementary level. If you feel like you are being unjustly let go because of your evaluations, there is a plan in place that the district uses that requires a sit-down meeting. You're put on a plan of assistance and you're paired with instructional coaches, and you have a 9-week period to try to improve your instruction. You also have the ability to appeal what you're doing with your evaluators, and they can go back and change evaluations if they feel like your points are valid. So that is my presentation. Thank you very much, and I will talk to you guys later.